Doobie doobie doo. Doobie doobie doo. Doobie 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 doo. All right, Rockfin, come on, you're holding me up. All right. All right. Doobie doobie doo. Doobie doobie doo. Doobie doobie doo. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. Doobie doobie doo. Doobie doobie doo. Doobie doobie doo. Doobie doobie doo. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. Doobie doobie doo. All right. Happy Monday, everyone. Welcome to Sabs podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. If you are new, I want to let you know that Sabs podcast is a part of Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can catch me there on Thursdays for the Roundtable and Fridays for the Sabby Show. And you can catch me here Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. What is going on? Shout out to everyone watching on YouTube, Rockfin, and Twitter. Want to give quick shout outs to people in the chat. What is going on? Nalan Hala? I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Africans are waiting. Doobie doobie doo. Welcome. Shout out to CBC Voter, who also says doobie doo. What's going on, Troy, who is a Sabby member, says doobie doobie doo. Shout out Sing at Night. I don't know what all those emojis mean, but you guys have got to excuse me. I'm not having a good hair day. I don't know what's happening with this stuff. So I'm just constantly like trying to push this back. Don't know what all those mean, but welcome. Shout out to Natalie, says JD went down 10 minutes into his live stream and didn't return. Not sure what's up with that. I think it's internet issues. I think that's what's going on. I was able to see the beginning of it and I saw it go down as well. What's going on? The Sand Queen says, I just got an email from Jimmy. It said that he had internet issues and there would be no live stream today. It said they would go ahead and record segments and upload them later. All right. Welcome, Joe OWS. Don't need no ticket. Just climb on board. What's going on? Hannah G says, let's go. Shout out to the Traveling Nomad, says, greetings from land of absolute vodka. Oh, you're taking me back to college. Stop. We used to collect the bottles too, actually. And we used to put little highlighters in them so they would glow in the dark. Back during my the lamp days. What were those lamps called? Lava lamps. Back during those lava lamp days. Do people still buy those? Shout out to Ben, who's a Sabby member, says, hi, Sabby. You put on a great podcast. Love the show. Thank you so much, Ben. What is going on? Kim says, at Natalie, Troy C goes by the name Lee Troy Stowe. Oh, interesting. I didn't know that. What's going on? Yipper99 said, great show, Sabby with Ron. Coincidentally, a couple hours later, Black Power Media released a video about Howard University and their problems with adjuncts, and they are planning to sue the university. Yep. That is so true. Guys, if you haven't seen that, go check out Ron Pacone's channel. I was on his show earlier today for a discussion about higher ed administration, the problems going on in the university system in this country, and there are a lot of them. So that was a good conversation. What's going on? Sean M says, yo, what up on this Monday? Greetings, Brent Hudgens said, why is there a disclaimer before messages? People will be able to see that you subscribe to this channel on RBN and Sabby streams. People will be able to see that you subscribe to this channel. I don't know about that. I've never seen that. Yeah, that's weird. Huh. Must be a new YouTube thing. Who knows? What's going on, Lawrence, who's a Sabby member, says doobie doobie doo. Shout out to Delthea Simmons, who's also a Sabby member, says howdy howdy from a beautiful day in the Tar Heel state. That's North Carolina. North Carolina. Raise up. take your shirt off, throw it in the air. No, spin it in the something like a helicopter. Anyway, it was a song about North Carolina. Shout out to Eric T. Red, who's also a Sabby member, says, hi there, Monday Lefty friends. What is going on? Craig Kidd says, Sabby, thanks for light in these dark times. Mondays. Yeah, Mondays are hard for me too, man. Night of the studio. Night of the sun, bro. Sorry. Says, hi, Sabby, with a sunflower. Greeting Monique in London says, hello. Shout out to Mario, says, SCOTUS shortage again. They should retire at 70. No exceptions. Same with politicians. I do think we need term limits. It's ridiculous. You just get a life appointment. Like, what? Do any of you get a life appointment at your jobs? No. I work at an at-will employment state. They can release you anytime without reason. So there's that. Shout out to Arthur Handy, and thanks for the super chat. Says, Sabby, are you aware of the protests at Raytheon in Cambridge, Massachusetts? I did not know that was happening. Folks got on their roof and held signs protesting Raytheon war profiteering. I did not know about that. Thank you for letting me know. I'm going to have to look that up. I'm going to have to check that out. What's going on? Christian Gomez says, aw, shit, here we go again. Shout out to another Christian who says, hair looks great. Oh, thank you. You guys are so sweet. You guys are so sweet. What's going on? Gary says, you will not stream Jimmy Dore and you will be happy. Klaus Schwab. Oh. Oh man, internet issues suck, man. It's not fun at all. Not fun at all. What's going on? Kenshi says, my dear Sabby. And shout out to Jeffrey Moore who says, peace, love. Peace? I think there's another peace sign. You can see. What's going on? Pat says, yes, Sabby, I get that people will be able to see message too. That is weird, man. I don't know, because like I'm actually streaming this through StreamYard. I'm not on YouTube. Like I'm not physically seeing YouTube. So that is weird. That's weird. Shout out to Kyle, who's a Sabby member. There's a little rooster there. And of course, a huge shout out to Gore, son of none. All government employees need to retire at 60. Give the next generation the reins. What's going on? Han said the title should be Cenk Uygur has found it profitable to realize something. I like that too. That's funny. All right, let's go ahead and get into it. Really quick, I do want to let you guys know I did see The Batman over the weekend. I really enjoyed it. And I think if you're going to go see it, go in with an open mind. Don't expect this to be like the Dark Knight series with Christian Bale. It is much darker than those movies, believe it or not. It's like, this is really dark. It is very, they went there. It's very dark. Definitely has more like a, I don't know, more like a, what is it? Film noir kind of feeling to it a little bit. Robert Pattinson actually did a good job as Batman. I'm not going to lie. I was impressed. But my thing is, when I'm watching superhero movies, is do I believe that you are Batman? And watching that movie, he did convince me that he was Batman. The Bruce Wayne part was a little tricky because you're not going to see the side of Bruce Wayne that you're used to seeing. You're only going to see, how can I say this? I don't want to give too much away, but you don't see enough Bruce Wayne. I will say that in this movie. You see more Batman. And the version of Bruce Wayne that you see is not what we're used to. He kind of has an emo feel to him a little bit. I was like telling my husband, Bruce Wayne wouldn't dress like that. Bruce Wayne's hair didn't look like that. Bruce Wayne did not have a dark presence. But apparently, if you go back to the older comic book versions, there was a period where Bruce Wayne was like that. And then later on, he got into more of his Playboy kind of phase. So I thought it was really good. That's just my opinion. There were some scenes that I thought were a little bit drawn out that could have been shorter. But overall, I think the movie's great. I think you should definitely go see it. Like I said, Robert Pattinson really did a good job. I was surprised. And Zoe Kravitz, who is Lenny Kravitz's daughter, is Catwoman, and she does a really good job as well. I think, honestly, her and Michelle Pfeiffer are probably the best at that role from what I've seen so far. So go see it, man. Go see it. But go on with the open mind. All right, I want to give a shout out to everyone who is a Sabby patron. Thank you so much. I appreciate all of you. I have 4 categories. If you want to be a patron, you can be a member, Sabby, Sabsters, or the Ultimate. Definitely want to give a shout out to a new patron. Her name is Lauren Berlante. I like that name. So thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. Their names are also strolling across the bottom of the screen. So, what are we talking about tonight, ladies and gentlemen? Let's go ahead and get into it. Just going to share my little thumbnail for you here. Tonight, we're talking about Cenk Uygur wakes up. What is Cenk Uygur waking up to? That should be pretty interesting. We're also going to talk about Hunter Biden ignored by mainstream media, certain ones in particular. And we're going to talk about charter schools increase. Now, that is an interesting story that I saw yesterday that I really want to talk about because I have a lot to say about that. So I want to go ahead and get started. I think I'm going to go ahead and start with the Hunter Biden story. So, Eric, I will skip. Yeah. Hunter Biden story, the Hunter Biden story. Sorry, I had a little too much tea today. All right, so let's go back and let's remember what happened. So there was a story about Hunter Biden's laptop, and remember, you weren't supposed to talk about it. That's what mainstream media said, right? Don't talk about the laptop story. Well, obviously, that has resurfaced thanks to an article by the New York, I believe it was the New York Times that posted it. And that resurfaced last week. But what I noticed is that certain networks are not talking about the information that they found. They're not discussing it at all. So let's go ahead and go into this article here. Hunter Biden scandal. CNN, MSNBC, ABC, CBS, and NBC completely avoided the New York Times report verifying laptop emails from 2020. Well, what do you know there, folks? Imagine how that happened. There's Hunter. Let's go ahead and get into this story. It was once routine that damning reports about the president published by the New York Times would lead nearly every news program. That is no longer the case, at least under President Biden. The Times ran a lengthy story Wednesday diving into the Justice Department's ongoing investigation of Biden's son, Hunter, and how a grand jury is still collecting witnesses, testimony, and records regarding his business dealings overseas. The Times also verified explosive emails first published by the New York Post in October 2020, just weeks before the presidential election, that implicated then candidate Biden, despite public denials he had nothing to do with his son's finances. So let me come forward for just a second. I think we all know what's going on here. Obviously, Joe Biden is not telling you the truth. Surprise, surprise. Wouldn't be the first time. But if you remember, Joe Biden made sure that this story would be hush. Again, they told you you're not supposed to talk about it. Back then, actually, I was on RT back when RIP RT. I went on RT, and that was one of the questions that came up that we discussed on that panel. The name of that show was Crosstalk with Peter Lavelle. And that was one of the things that came up was, why can't we talk about it? Why can't we talk about it? You know? So one of the things that I told myself is that imagine if it wasn't Hunter Biden. Let's pretend it was one of Trump's kids. Let's pretend it was Donald Trump Jr. Could we talk about it then? I bet you we could. I bet you I'm willing to bet we could talk about it then. But because it's Joe Biden's son and Joe Biden is the current president, we're not supposed to talk about it. This is the bias that you see come from mainstream media. Now, obviously, Fox News is talking about it, but that's also kind of biased because, again, if it was Trump's son, would Fox News be covering the story the way that they're covering it right now? Probably not. But the liberal media outlets are purposely avoiding this story. Now, if you're supposed to be a journalist, you're supposed to report the news. You're not supposed to decide that you're not going to discuss a story, a damning story, by the way, that you're not going to discuss it because the person that you have allegiance to, who is a Democrat, Joe Biden, is president of the United States, and it can implicate him. And because it's about his family, you don't get to just say, I'm not going to talk about that story. That's not good journalism. That's not good commentary. You still should cover the story. And the fact that they're refusing to even cover it just goes to show you just how biased they are. And this is the propaganda that we get from mainstream media. I'm going to go back into the article. Boop, boop, be doop. Since Wednesday evening, the Times report has received zero attention on the 5 major networks. ABC, CBS, and NBC made no mention of Hunter Biden on their morning and evening newscast on Thursday or Friday, according to Graben transcripts. Neither CNN nor MSNBC dedicated time to the ongoing scandal, despite being 24-hour news networks. And that's another thing I do want to comment on. If you're live 24 hours, how could you not mention this story? You have a better chance hearing about this story from me and other left independent media networks. You have a better chance hearing about it from independent media than you do from mainstream media. This is where we are now. But they say, don't listen to us. They say we're fake news. All right, going back in. Additionally, CNN media correspondent Brian Stetler also ignored the Times report in his media-centric Reliable Sources newsletter, but managed to squeeze in a mention about Meghan Markle's newest podcast. This is the perfect example of distraction. They would rather you focus on the fact that Meghan Markle has a podcast than the fact that the president and his son have an issue here with this laptop and the information that's on it. And I don't know everything that's on it. I've heard stories, but I don't have like confirmation of that. But I've heard some things about what's on that laptop, and they want to distract you from that. They do this a lot with celebrities, and I want you to pay like close attention to this. A lot of times, they want to distract you with celebrity news. Could be something stupid like Kim Kardashian wore a half see-through dress into a restaurant while waving. They'll focus on things like that so that you're not paying attention to what's really going on. And I tell people that's part of the propaganda with mainstream media. They focus on the issues that they want you to focus on. And so you have to start paying attention to the issues that they're not talking about. And that's why I'm here. And that's why other people from independent media a lot of times are here as well. We want to draw your attention to those stories, or there's information that they've left out of those stories that they don't want you to know about. We're here to fix that, to fill that hole. So that's important for people to note. Going back in, doobie doobie doo. All right, so let's go down here. In November, the 5 networks avoided another Times report that alleged an investment firm that counts Hunter Biden among its founders helped a Chinese company purchase one of the world's most lucrative coal-backed mines from an American company while his father was vice president, renewing concerns about potential conflicts of interest and whether the now current president had any knowledge about his son's business dealings, which he had previously denied. The legacy media collectively disregarded the report from the New York Post that shed light on Hunter Biden's questionable financial ties, suggesting it was all right-wing conspiracy or that it was the product of Russian disinformation. How did I know they were going to try to use that? You know who else they've used that against? Jill Stein. They tried to say Jill Stein was a Russian asset. Remember that? Anybody who tends to reveal some type of information that they don't want you to know about, all of a sudden we all work for Russia. We're a Russian bot. I said something recently on LinkedIn, and I was pointing out that there's a lot of hypocrisy with what's going on right now with Ukraine. That everybody wants you to care about the people in Ukraine, but they are totally ignoring the damage that is being done to people in Somalia and Yemen and Afghanistan. They're not talking about it. They want you to focus on the Europeans. They don't want you to focus on the people of color abroad. I mentioned that. Do you know someone commented and said, "Nice try, Russian bots"? I'm like, what? I'm a real person, you idiot. You could easily just click on my profile. You could see there's a real person. You can see my channel, my YouTube channel. You can see clips from my videos. They didn't even choose to look at that. They just assumed I'm a bot. This is where we are now. I'm going to go back into the story. Oh my God. It was unbelievable. Unbelievable. CNN top executives, including then President Jeff Zucker and political director David Chalian, were caught telling staff on a conference call they were spiking the Post reporting on Hunter Biden, according to leaked audio tapes published by Project Veritas. In the days leading up to the 2020 election, personalities on CNN, MSNBC, CBS, and NBC all downplayed the Hunter Biden scandal, while ABC News completely ignored the story. Brian Stetler, a staunch defender, of the establishment media, who has a reputation among critics as being a hall monitor, was confronted by Washington Times correspondent Susan Ferricho as the Hunter Biden scandal was unfolding in October 2020. A rare moment for anyone in the media to be pressed about the dismissal of the New York Post reporting. And here's the tweet here. It says, this is coming from the Washington Examiner, says, at Brian Stelter, don't you dare act like newsrooms didn't have ethics in 2017 and 2018. Susan responds and says, they also say at Susan, don't dare me all you want, Brian. I've been doing this for 30 years. Susan and Brian clash over the Hunter Biden story versus Steele dossier. Listen to this.
There is anything real in them.
Yeah, but that doesn't stop any from reporting the Mueller and the dossier and all that stuff.
You're bitter. I understand that you have a lot of resentment about it.
Now we have ethics. Okay, now we have ethics.
Don't you dare act like newsrooms didn't have ethics in 2017 and 2018.
Well, I know they did. So, well, you can don't dare me all you want, Brian. I've been doing this for 30 years. So say whatever you want. It's my view, and I have a right to say it. I was invited on.
So your view is that the news media was unethical with Mueller?
Hang on, so one at a time. I don't quite get
it's my view.
Let me bring in Sarah Fisher, and then I want to move on to Google briefly. But go on, Sarah.
I think this conversation is so critical, even though it can get tense. It's actually a matter of, can you have two things be true at once? Can you have a story that needs scrutiny from all outlets? Because we don't know whether or not it's true, right? Axios, we're all trying to figure out whether or not this story is true, and we deserve to do that. But we also need to think about the bigger picture, which is, God forbid, this story was tied to some sort of bigger disinformation effort to penetrate our elections. We also need to consider that. And that's why I think it's critical that you're not just seeing, you got to see the forest through the trees. You got to look at this particular story about the Hunter Biden.
Yeah, but no one looked through the forest through the trees with the president. I mean, it's always one-sided. Now it's time to look at the forest. All I'm saying is let's do it universally, okay? I didn't discard the Mueller stuff. I was much more skeptical because I knew the sourcing. And I knew where I came from on Capitol Hill, where I have stood in the building for the past few decades. I had real reason to doubt that stuff, and I constantly did. And it turned out a lot of it was a bunch of bunk. So
when you say Mueller stuff, there are people in prison.
Use that skepticism. We have to. Even now with the Biden stuff, let's use the skepticism, but don't ignore it.
Okay, Susan, let's just Brian come back in this, and then I'm going to ask Tony to help us through the Google case. Brian, go ahead.
I agree with you. It should not be ignored, but I think there's a difference between reporters looking into it in their newsrooms versus going on the air with it when it's unvetted. And what we're in right now is
break. You never did that with Trump stuff. That's just BS.
Hang on a second, Susan. Go ahead, Brian.
You have no idea how this newsroom operates.
If you both speak, we can't hear either of you. Brian, go ahead.
I understand. Let me just say briefly, it's grievance politics. It comes from the right. It happens every day. Newsrooms in America are very careful about this stuff. I know viewers and readers don't see it, but it happens every day. Slow, cautious vetting happens every day.
Okay, I do want to move on.
He's lying. Let's be clear, ladies and gentlemen. Brian is lying. Brian is letting you know he is not going to discuss this unless he is pushed to or forced to by the network. Let's be clear. What Susan said was correct. He didn't do that with Trump. In fact, anytime something came out against Donald Trump, they couldn't wait to jump on it. CNN couldn't wait to talk about it. Even if they didn't have all the information, they would still talk about it. Am I right or am I wrong? They would even tell you, well, this is all we know at this time. They didn't waste 1 second. Any story about Trump. Trump walked outside and his toupee fell off. I actually don't know if Trump has a toupee, but still, even a story like that, they couldn't wait to jump on it. Now you have more evidence about Hunter Biden's laptop. You mean to tell me you need more information? Since when does CNN need more information? How many times have they reported stories that were incorrect? How many times? Sometimes they would come back and retract them, but sometimes they didn't come back and retract those stories. So let's be real. Brian is just trying to save himself. He's not talking about that story because the network told them not to, because it's a liberal media and they're trying to protect the liberal politicians. It's going to get to the point, I think, for them to talk about this. People are going to have to release more information from that laptop, maybe some screenshots. You guys don't know, I love to screenshot. That's why when I tell you, when I come forward with things, I have receipts. So this is ridiculous. He's caught. Let's be real. He's busted here and he's just trying to save face. Those networks didn't talk about it because they were told not to. Whoever is higher up, whether it was the producers or the people who own the networks, told them not to talk about it. That's not how journalism used to be. I went to school for broadcast journalism. If you're new, you may not know that about me. Studied broadcast journalism in English. Back then, we were told that when you're going out and you're reporting a story, you're just supposed to report the facts. That's not what you see today. You don't see that on CNN. You don't see that on MSNBC. You don't see it on Fox News. You just don't see that. Let's be real. These networks are biased. Fox News is the conservative news network. CNN is the liberal news network. Everybody pretty much knows that. Just keeping it real. Just keeping it real. I'm going to go to some of the comments in the chat. God, they kill me. All bulls aside says crosstalk is still around. Dude films from Moscow and is still on RT. They took that down. They took them down on YouTube too, but I'll double check. Marcus Cage said there's Sabby doing fake news again. Alex M says, have Max Blumenthal on your show. He's been on here. I do need to bring him back on though. Thank you for reminding me. Mario said, I had a crush on Svetlana back in middle school. They got me early. What? Okay. Natalie said, I was named after a Russian American actress, so I must be pro-Russia. There you go. They come up with all of it. Thanks for the super chat, Craig. The current conflict is directly connected to 5 years of Russia gating. Thank you so much for that. 100%. So you want to talk about reporting stories? Let's be clear. Let's be clear. They're still on Odyssey. Okay, I didn't realize that. I'll have to check that out. I have to check that out. Yipper99 said, Sabby, in elementary school, when you write a report, you have to have facts and supporting details. Elementary school. That's true. That's true. But it's just, I don't know, man. I don't know. And of course, Tucker Carlson and Rachel Maddow tried to say that technically they're not news, they're infotainment. So that's how they're able to get away with what they do. But I'm sorry, but like Rachel Maddow reported on Russiagate, and she was on this Russiagate train like for a while. Like, let's be real, guys. And she was wrong. Like, oh my God, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. I'm going to go ahead and go. Sorry, I'm just laughing. I'm going to go ahead and go into my second story. And I believe this one is about, I am not liking my hair tonight. What do we have here? I can't see it. Hold on. I don't know what I did. Oh, no, that's not it. It'll be, shoot, I forgot which one I'm going to next. Oh, the Jinx story. Let's go ahead and go to the Jinx story. So let me move that. So Cenk Uygur, ladies and gentlemen, he's done it again. Cenk Uygur, I think, is finally coming to terms with the fact that the Democrats are just terrible. They're not doing what they're supposed to do. Joe Biden is a joke. The squad is a joke, but they're actually behaving the way that the system wants them to, not the way the American people want them to. And that's just the reality of this two-party system. Now, for some of you, if you saw the third party summit that we did over at RBN over the weekend, there were a lot of discussions about path forwards and like how we can make third parties better. But there were also opposing views. There were also people on that just don't want to do it at all. They're like, I don't want to do two-party system. I don't want to do third parties. They just don't want to vote at all. So hopefully you were educated a little bit more about third parties, the situation with the Greens. Howie Hawkins was on there. Jill Stein was on there. And also there was more information about just why these parties, for whatever reason, the third party candidates are not getting the attention that they need to get and how we can possibly try to fix that. So that's that. But Cenk Uygur, let me just show you this tweet. Okay, so Black in the Empire, by the way, he's awesome. Follow him on Twitter, please do. Black in the Empire responded to this tweet that says, every plot to a Cenk movie is Trump bad, and every end to the movie is vote Democrat. And he's right about that. And I'm going to show you the tweet that he responded to. So this came from Cenk Uygur. If the election were held today, Trump would probably beat Biden and almost certainly end democracy. I've seen this movie before. The Titanic can sink. We need a real fighter on the Democratic side. Civility is going to cost us the country. We must fight back aggressively. Okay. So let's talk about this for a second. So Cenk Uygur is realizing that Joe Biden is not going to do anything for the American people, basically. I think he's also realizing that the squad is toast. He's realizing that they are not fighting for us. I have no problem with that. Here's where I have the problem. He goes on to say we need a real fighter on the Democratic side. He's still trying to get you to vote for Democrats. What? He's still trying to keep you in the same party that doesn't even want progressives there. Mark my words. This year and 2024, Cenk Uygur is still going to try to get you to vote for progressives and put them through the Democratic Party. And although he's naming names like Joe Biden, it's not really a one-person issue. It's the system. It's the two-party system. It's the fact that both parties are owned by Wall Street. So even the politicians that go in that have really good intentions, great expectations, they are not going to be able to push back on a party that is owned by Wall Street. If they try to, they will be dismissed. Whether that means having the DNC put someone up against them and challenge them, someone with more money, or they will push them out. We've seen this. I've seen that movie before, Cenk. I've seen that movie with Cynthia McKinney. I've seen that movie with Ralph Nader. So that's the problem that I have with this. Because at the end of the day, just like Black in the Empire just told you, his solution is still vote Democrats. The problem is not the individual people. The problem is the party and the system. The party controls what happens, not those individual people. Joe Biden, there's a number of things he can do right now. He could give everybody Medicare for all. He can follow the same path that the government did in Libby, Montana, when they gave everybody Medicare for all. Joe Biden can cancel student loan debt. These are things he can just do on his own. He does not need approval from Congress or the Senate. Hell, he don't need approval from Joe Manchin or Kirsten Sinema. I have to mention them because people like to use them as scapegoats. So just got to put that out there. He could do that right now. Right now. He is choosing not to because the party that he is a part of is owned by Wall Street. Do you think Wall Street would want Joe Biden to cancel student loan debt? Do you think Big Pharma would want Joe Biden to give everybody health care in this country? Nope. And I want to add another element to this that sometimes is not mentioned. The military-industrial complex. This is also the reason why I believe they will not cancel student loan debt. This is also the reason why I believe they don't want to give people health care in this country. Everybody mentions big pharma, corporations, but there's also a connection to the military-industrial complex. What do I mean by that? My dad was in the military. I can tell you firsthand, there are a lot of benefits that you get and your family members. One of the most effective recruiting tools for the military is free college and healthcare. So those of us that were part of the military or grew up in those families, the health insurance provider that we had is called TRICARE. TRICARE pays for just about everything. I never had a copay until I was off of my parents' insurance and I had to get my own. I didn't even know what a copay was. I'm like, a what? I gotta pay? You need me to give you money? I'm confused. One of the best, the best health insurance that you can have, TRICARE. You can walk into the doctor, TRICARE pay for almost everything. I remember even with my parents, when it came to paying for prescription medication, I think the most they probably had to pay was like $3. Now, if you give everybody universal health care, if you give everyone free college in the United States, you just remove two benefits of joining the military-industrial complex. So it will be harder for the Army, the Navy, the Coast Guard, the Marines to recruit people. Because when they recruit, they usually do so in low-income Black and brown communities. They target those communities. And the reason why they do that is because they see that there's people there looking for a way to get out of poverty. They are the perfect target. Let's go get them. Let them know we'll give them free schooling and free healthcare. They'll get to travel and see the world and they won't have to pay for it. They forget to mention the part that you could possibly die. There's that. That's how it works. So I would really like to hear more people mention that. It's not just because of Wall Street. It's not just because of big pharma. This is also because of the military-industrial complex. They are very much connected to this. I will also let you know, and I talked about this on Ron Paclone's show earlier today, that when it comes to these predatory student loan companies like Sallie Mae, they have people that sit in DC to make sure that they don't go away. It's all connected. The government is in bed with the student loan companies, and the universities are in bed with the student loan companies. That's why a lot of these universities don't give much scholarship money. They don't give much for academic scholarships unless you get into like Harvard or MIT. But they have the largest endowments. Those two schools, Harvard and MIT, have huge endowments. They can give out more scholarships. I know this because I work there. But most of the public universities cannot, right? They don't have a lot of the funds to give everybody scholarships, academic scholarships. They'll give you athletic scholarships, but you're basically a slave for the university. Let's be real. A lot of those athletes that I went to school with, they weren't allowed to have a job. So if you're coming from a family that has a poor family, they have no money to help you with college. If you have to call home and say, Mom and Dad, can I get $20? They don't have it to give it to you. You're an athlete playing for the university, but you're still poor and you can't do anything. And I saw this a lot when I was in undergrad at University of South Carolina. A lot of those athletes, they couldn't do wanting to take girls out on dates, couldn't take girls out on dates because they didn't have any money because they weren't allowed to work. All they were supposed to do is train and play sports. And even when it wasn't their season for their sport, they were still training and prepping for that sport. They could miss classes. We could not. That's a whole other subject. I think I need to do a separate stream about college athletes and how the university uses those students. They don't really give them the opportunity to get a decent education. If they want to major in something like engineering, they're usually told, no, go with something easier. That's why you see a lot of them major in communications. Whole other story, though. Whole other story. But I want more people to mention that, how much this involves the military industrial complex as well. And as someone who was an Army kid, I know what I'm talking about. I've seen it. I've seen it. So another problem with this tweet. He says, and almost certainly in democracy. Do we have a democracy? Do we really have one? I posed that question to the chat. Do you feel we really have a democracy in this country? Do we really get what we vote for sometimes? Do we? I mean, unless you're talking about on the local level, I don't know, boo. I don't know. A democracy. Because I see, like, if we really had a true democracy, third-party candidates, independent candidates would be on every ballot regardless. They wouldn't have to fight to get on the ballot. Jill Stein would have been on the ballot in every state, not just 48 states. That would be automatic. Why do they have to raise more money just to get on the ballot? Because they're a third party or independent and they're not a part of the two-party system. That don't sound like democracy to me. If you live in a state and you only have a Democrat option or Republican option on your ballot, and you don't have a third-party option or independent option, even though there's someone running, but they couldn't get on the ballot, is that a democracy? I don't think so. When people have to stand in line for hours just to cast a vote, only to get up to the front of the line and told the doors are closing, you can't sit here. That don't sound like a democracy to me. It seems like to me, there's certain rules for certain people in certain groups. And anything outside of those groups has to fight and struggle to get the same opportunity. And most of the time, they're not given that opportunity. Most of the time, they don't get there. Let's just be real. Don't sound like a democracy to me. What do we really get when we vote? Do we get a say-so on what happens in foreign policy? No. The president can do that all on his own. He's the commander in chief. We get no say-so. I really want to encourage a lot of you that are listening. If you still want to do electoral politics, I want to encourage you to shift your focus. And I talked about this over the weekend with the Third Party Summit. I want you to shift your focus to local politics. I want you to focus on who is running for mayor, who's running for governor, who's running for city council, City council controls the budget. That's an important position. People don't talk about it. I want you to shift your focus to that. If you live in a state that has ballot initiatives, like my state, Massachusetts, we have BIs. We've gotten a lot done through ballot initiatives in this state. I want you to focus on that, because that's an area with electoral politics where we can actually make a difference and implement change, not on the federal level. And a lot of people are not going to tell you this. A lot of people are going to tell you to continue voting for Democrats. Come 2024, regardless if it's Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Booty, or Puff Daddy, somebody is going to tell you to vote blue no matter who, so that you can get these things that you want, so that you can get health care for everyone. Some people in independent media are going to tell you that. So I'm going to go ahead and prep you now. How's that working out for us? They don't give us anything. They get there. They take our funds. They take our labor. They win. They get in. They do nothing for us. So for some people who say, well, that's pessimistic, and I don't think it's fair for you to tell people that, people should still be able to vote. Okay, if you want to go that route, do it on the local level where you can actually make a difference. That's how I feel about that. I think we need to stop playing this game. We need to stop playing this game. I just told you both the parties are owned by Wall Street. But I've known people that have run for city council. I've seen them create change. I know people that have run for mayor and have won and have actually made significant changes in the Boston area. So focus on that. Focus on school board. That's also very important. But I mentioned this over the weekend as well. A lot of people I know, they don't even know who their city councilor is. And I'm going to ask you guys, those of you watching, who is your city councilor? If you don't know, you should find out. They're not paid. At least in Massachusetts, they're not paid. They still have to have a regular job. So they're really doing this because they actually care. And I want to give you an example of someone who was on a local level here with me and how it's changed. Ayanna Pressley, before she was a congresswoman, she was a city councilor in Boston. She actually did a lot. When she was on the local level, she got more accomplished. One of the things that she pushed, and I'm glad she did this, was the liquor licenses. There's prejudice here in Boston, and a lot of the Black restaurants and lounges, the city didn't want to give them the liquor license. There's two different parts to this. There is one level of a license that you can have, and then there's another one, right? So you can serve alcohol after a certain time. They didn't want to give it to the Black restaurants and the Black lounges, especially the newer ones. They're like, we're not giving out any more license. Ayanna Pressley was the one who got that accomplished. Most people, unless you live here, most people don't know that. Now, Ayanna Pressley is in Congress. I don't know what she's doing. You see what I'm saying? This is why I say to focus more on the local level where you can actually implement change. But that was a significant win for restaurants and bars and lounges here in Boston, in the African-American neighborhoods. That was a big win. But she went to DC, and you see how that's working out. You see how that is working out. So, yeah, Eric said it. Ayanna getting paid now. See the difference? Like I said, the city councilors, they're not paid. Yipper99 said she got comfortable. There you go. There you go. So when Cenk Uygur says, oh, about democracy, I don't even feel like we have a true democracy. And he still wants you to do it through the Democratic Party, as if that's the only way, the only path forward. Let me ask you guys a question. If Bernie Sanders ran as an independent in 2020 or as a third party candidate in 2020, those of you that voted for him in the primary, would you have still voted for Bernie Sanders? I would have. You see what I mean? He didn't have to run through the Democratic Party. Why would you run through that party again after what they did to you in 2016? You guys get me? So this whole idea that it has to be the Democratic Party or the Republican Party, that's BS. Most of you in the chat right now saying, yes, you still would have voted for him if he ran as an independent or as a third party candidate. So that right there lets me know that this whole plan of it's got to be through the Democratic Party is bullshit. There's a lot of people who are independents, especially when it comes, they're registered as an independent. They can go either way. And I think sometimes those people are forgotten about. It's always about Democrats and Republicans, especially with mainstream media. Democrats or Republicans, Democrats or Republicans. Nah, boo. Independents are increasing in this country, especially since Trump. Got to talk about it. Got to talk about it. I'm going to go to some of the comments in the chat. Thank you so much for the super chat. Cool Blue. Is Jinx still asking people to send him money? Oh God. I don't know. I haven't watched TYT in like a long time, man. Even when I play the clips on here, that's usually something that someone has sent me. But I'm sure he probably is still asking people for money. He used to ask people for money like every 5 minutes. Hey, guys, if you like what we're doing, donate money. Every other 5. Hey, don't forget our advertiser, buy this coffee. I'm just like, geez, man, are you kidding me? Thanks for the super chat, Christopher. Did you see that photo George Galloway retweeted? I have not. Although I think Jackson Hinkle just talked about him recently. No, I think he did. I had to double check. Thanks for the super chat, Troy. Montel Williams was well known when I was in the Navy to go to poor neighborhoods and recruit big time. Yeah, I forgot he was in the military. Yeah. For those who don't know, Montel Williams is a talk show. Well, he was a talk show host. Max Fiend says another study found that people are more receptive to joining the military when they are 15 to 17 years old. Yes. And that's why they go to the high schools. We had military soldiers. They came to my high school. One of them came to my house. I don't even know how they found out where we lived. My dad answered the door. He never came back. That's all I'm going to say about that one. Dad answered the door. Max also says there was a study under Obama that found more women of drafting age meet entry requirements than men. That is why they are trying to expand the SS Act to women. Ooh, interesting. Monarch said the draft in essence has been revised. Interesting. All right. I'm going to go to my third story. And this one is one that's I'm really passionate about because, again, I worked in education and I have a strong resentment for charter schools. So I saw this the other day. I don't like it, but here we go. Asian parents fed up with public education want more charter schools. Let me go ahead and make this larger for you. So here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Boop. In 2010, the powerful documentary Waiting for Superman exposed public schools for the failure factories they are and forged lasting awareness that for Black families, the only hope for a decent education is winning the charter school lottery. That was the early days of charter schools, but the dynamic of racial partisan politics back then cuts even now. Michelle Rhee, daughter of Korean immigrants, appointed by reformist Black Mayor Adrian Fenty to save poor Black families in D.C., is obstructed at every turn and ultimately defeated by Randy Weingarten, white boss of a union powerful with Democrats. Although Rhee achieved dramatic student gains, the union denied Fenty re-election and Rhee resigned. For Black families, Rhee and Fenty would not be their Superman. The rescue lay with charter schools. Let me go ahead and scroll down here. Today, 12 years later, it's no longer newsworthy that charter schools are educational lifelines for Black families. What is newsworthy is that Asians are beginning to view charter schools as educational lifelines too. Why? Let's humor critics who say charter schools get amazing academic outcomes only because the parents of their children care a lot about education. The Asian parents are ideal for charter schools. Even ex-mayor Bill de Blasio finally conceded that Asian parents care a lot about education after he attacked Asians relentlessly all throughout his second term for basically caring a lot about education. Wow. Bottom line, charter schools will deliver results, and that's what Asian parents want. This example is typical in South Brooklyn, where many Chinese live. Success Academy Bensonhurst trounces PS 97 nearby in proficiency rates in both math, 100% versus 61%, and language arts, 93% versus 65%. I can't play that Superman trailer for you because I will get a copyright for that. Yes, the Brooklyn School of Inquiry, BSI, a city school near Success Academy Bensonhurst, also outperforms PS 97. Let's go down here. While city schools give up educating, they have launched increasingly grandiose diversions. They take on trauma-informed pedagogy, socio-psychiatric therapy, gender choice advocacy, race-centric indoctrination, and parental displacement, but can't even keep gangs and weapons out of schools. Asian families know about the political brainwashing, alienation of parental affection, and racial quotas. Now, with decent education disappearing, they see city schools as impossible. Let me pop out for just a second. I have something I want to say about this before we go a little bit further. They just said in the article that they see city schools as, not a possibility, basically, right? But why is that? They don't say this in the article, so I'm going to go ahead and tell you. I talked about this weekend as well. The reason why a lot of the schools, the public schools in the cities, are underfunded and under-resourced in the urban areas, you have to go all the way back to what happened with white flight. When white families left the city and moved to the suburbs, they took their money with them. And because of housing discrimination and because of redlining, because of redlining, Black families were not allowed into those suburban communities. This actually goes all the way back to the New Deal, because the banks would not give loans to those Black families so that they could buy those homes. These are the parts of the New Deal that did not benefit Black people. A lot of people walk around saying they're FDR Democrat, not really knowing what that meant in reference to Black people. So when the money left the cities, when they took their money with them to the suburbs, the schools in the cities became underfunded and under-resourced because the funding is based on property taxes. Most people that live in the urban areas do not own their housing. Most people who live in Boston don't own their apartment. It's too expensive. You want to buy a house in Boston, that's like $1 million. So most people don't own anything. So obviously, you're not going to have as much for the property taxes. That is why the schools in those urban areas are underfunded and under-resourced, because they are still being funded by property taxes and the money is not there. So in order to fix this problem, What needs to happen is public schools need to be funded with federal dollars, not by property taxes. It should not come from the state. That's one way around this, I think. Now, there's more to this story. Let's get into it. So what has happened over the years? Somebody came along and decided to create charter schools so that those kids in those communities have the opportunity to receive a better education, but just not at the school in their neighborhood because the school was underfunded, under-resourced. I have a big problem with charter schools. Here's the problem. A lot of these charter schools, in order for those students to get in, they have to test into those schools. You have to get a certain score to get into the school. It's the same way here in Massachusetts, by the way. Not everybody gets to go to Boston Latin. So they have to test into those schools. Most kids in those neighborhoods don't meet the score requirement to get into the school. So if you don't have the score requirement to get into the school, you are now stuck at the under-resourced school in your neighborhood. How is that fair? So instead of increasing charter schools, why can't you just take the same lessons, the same academic curriculum that you're teaching at the charter schools and teach it in the public school system? Why not? Why not fix the schools in Roxbury and Dorchester instead of putting these kids on a bus and putting them on the highway to go to school in Newton where all the rich people are? Why can't you just fix the school in the community? That's the problem. The charter schools take the best students from those schools and bring them in. If you are not one of the top performing students, you do not have a chance to get in. That is not right. And it's almost like you are basically being punished because you are poor. Because you are poor, you don't get to have a decent education. Who even thought that this was a good idea? So imagine if you're one of those kids, you're one of the Black kids growing up in Roxbury, you get into that charter school, but your friends and your neighbors don't. So now you're getting on the bus to go to the charter school every day. You still got to come back home to your neighborhood and face your friends that got left behind. I don't like it. I don't like it one bit. And they continue to build them. Every time I turn around, there's another charter school popping up. Just fix the damn schools. This is stupid. And those schools, academically, yes, the students do really well. They prepare them a lot of times for college prep. So they get the college preparation at the charter schools. Why can't you have college preparation at the public schools? No one should have to test into that. This is just stupid. So that's the problem that I have with these charter schools. It is not fair. It is wrong. And more people, I wish more people would talk about it, especially those that work in education. It is not right to leave those kids behind. What do? I'm going to go back into the article. Asian parents embrace cultural values practiced in the best charter networks, but denounced by city schools. They prefer hard work over entitlement, agency over victimhood, achievement over narcissism, empowerment over fragility. As a result, there's rising Asian interest in charter schools. From 2018 to 2021, Asian enrollment in Success Academy Bensonhurst went up by 46%, from 15 to 22%. And at Success Academy Union Square by 52%, from 19 to 29%. But there's an obstacle. Of course there is. Waiting for Superman climaxes with the heart-wrenching scene of families in packed auditoriums watching their charter school lotteries. As numbers are drawn, one by one lucky student explodes with joy. Other kids look in agony at the digital display, counting the remaining seats. 3210. Tears flow, heads drop. Of the 5 families followed in the documentary, only one draws a seat. Superman fails to come in for 4. There aren't enough charter schools, and I have to pop back out. That is not the solution. This kind of reminds me of the same philosophy that people are saying, like, we don't have enough progressives in the Democratic Party. We don't have enough progressives in Congress. We need more. Instead of addressing the actual system that's in place that causes us to not get anything anyway. That's what this reminds me of. The answer is not to create more charter schools. The answer is to fix the schools that you have in the public education system. The answer is to pay teachers an actual living wage. I know teachers in this country making under $30,000 a year. How is that even possible? How is that possible in a field that requires you to have a college degree? That doesn't make any sense. So the answer should not be, we need more charter schools. You just need to fix the damn schools that you have. And nobody wants to do it. I've walked into schools in Boston. I couldn't believe this was a freaking school. I'm looking around and I'm like, is this a school or a war zone? Get the cops out of the schools. You don't need police officers at schools. I'm walking into classrooms where the doors are barely hanging on the hinges. I'm walking into bathrooms where the stall has no door in the woman's bathroom. Where is all the money going? We can build new stadiums, right? Bring in more sports teams. What? We can build entertainment plazas. We can constantly build new condo buildings. We got all the money when it comes to real estate. We can invest in that. But when it comes to the public education system, in Boston in particular, they don't want to invest in it. And it's not just Boston, it's other cities around this country as well. But you shouldn't have to go live in the suburbs to get a decent education. You shouldn't have to hopefully win this educational lottery so that you can get a decent education. We shouldn't have to build more charter schools so that these kids can get a decent education. It's a problem. I don't like it, and I disagree with it. When I read this article, I was like, are you kidding me? Fix the system. You fix the system, you fix the schools. But it's not fair to those kids who were left behind. And if you haven't seen that documentary, Waiting for Superman, I highly recommend that you watch it. Because it's appalling to see those kids cry, to see the family members cry because they weren't chosen, they couldn't get in. Now in Boston, you have to test into those schools. If you want to get into Boston Latin, even if you live next to Boston Latin, you can't just go to Boston Latin. Isn't that something? Isn't that funny? You live right down the street from Boston Latin and you can't go to the damn school because you have to test into it. Give everybody a decent education. Kids shouldn't have to go to a private school, a charter school. Just give everybody the same decent education. Solve that problem right there. I'm going to come out now. I get heated over that, you guys. I'm sorry. I get fired up over that because if you look up the top 10 schools in Massachusetts, most of the schools in the top 10 are now charter schools. That wasn't the case when I moved here 10 and a half years ago. That's how things have changed. A kid said, Sabby, it is true. Asian culture does do a better job on focusing and driving their children to focus on getting into college. It's innately built into their culture. And there's nothing wrong with that, but these damn charter schools have got to go. It's just a problem. I feel so bad for those kids. I really do. Oh, I think I missed. Did I miss something? Craig, did I? Oh, thanks for the super chat. I'm not sure if I got this one. The current conflict is directly connected to 5 years of Russia gating. Maybe I did say that one. I can't remember. All bulls aside says RT still has a website and is on Rumble, by the way. Since when? When did this change? Because I looked this up like before Tar Reed came on. So I'll have to double check. The Wire season 4. That's, oh my God. If you guys have not seen The Wire, whew. Oh man. Oh man. Cryptician said education is Sabby's specialty. This is personal to her. Yeah, it's very personal because I've been in those schools. I've seen them. I've seen what these kids have to go to and what they have to go through. It's ridiculous. You have kids in Dorchester, they have to take 3 buses just to get to school because the city doesn't want to pay to put a subway station in the poor neighborhoods. What? They don't want to pay to put a subway station in parts of Dorchester, the poorer parts of Dorchester. They don't want to put one there. So these kids got to take 3 buses just to get to the damn school. Thanks so much for the super chat, Delthea. Save your narrative. Poor school movies perpetuate and excuse bad education policy. People wind up believing a lie and not seeing the truth. Right. And that's the thing that I want people to understand. I don't want you to walk away from the stream thinking, yeah, we need more charter schools. No, that's not how you fix this problem. It's really not fair. It really isn't. JP said, and the upper middle class in the USA are like greedy robots with no sense of country or righteousness. They can lobby Congress for what they want, but they do, or excuse me, for what they want, but they don't. They are elitist too. A kid said, Sabby, I worked at a charter school and saw firsthand how effective they were, but it was to the detriment of the community as the school could only serve a small number of students. That's the problem. That's why they won't let everybody come in. It's just, it's terrible. The public education system in this country needs a lot of work. And I'm saying that as someone who went to international school abroad. The public education system in this country needs a lot of work. Yes, Delthea, you fix public schools by fixing public schools, period. What? Sebastian said, talk about student lunch debt, Sabby. That's another problem that people can run into is that some people may not realize this, but for some students who have like free lunch or free breakfast through the school, for some of them, that's the only meal they'll get to eat that day. And I think it's one of those things like if you haven't worked in these education systems, you may not be aware, you may not see that, but it's just a reality. But one of the things that will happen is that sometimes students don't have lunch money, right? Or their parents didn't give them lunch money. Some of these kids are raising themselves. I'm just going to be real with you. Mom and dad are not there because they're working all the time because they have to pay the bills. So some of these kids that I talk to in these schools, they're raising themselves. There's no one at home to tell them to do their homework. There's no one at home to tell them it's your bedtime. It's time to go to sleep. So a lot of times the kids would come into school. The parent either couldn't give them lunch money or forgot to give them lunch money. And so as the school administrators, you still have to feed them. Like you can't just be like, oh, sorry, you don't get to eat today. So what they would do, at least at one of the schools that I was at, they would basically let them, it's like credit, right? So you get to eat your lunch. They take your name and put it on a little pad. So you owe that money back to the school. That's another thing that should change. Just make school lunch free. Come on. It's not the best food. Let's be real. You should see what the kids get to eat for lunch in France and Germany. You should see what their lunch looks like. It's actual real food. John said in Chicago, they have closed over 50% of public schools in Black neighborhoods. They have built and upgraded schools in white neighborhoods. Yep. You guys see why the property taxes funding public schools is a problem? If the people in the neighborhood don't really own anything, that's true too. Turkey Day. Sabby Sap, watch Where to Invade Next, methinks. I have not seen that, but I've heard of it. I need to watch it. Sebastian said, what's sad is that many of these school lunches are made by the same one who makes meals for prisons. Schools equals prisons in the USA. It's true. It's true. I was never really a fan of school lunch, man. I'm not going to lie. That fake pizza that tastes like cardboard. Eric said, West Virginia approved charter schools for 2024, I think. The public system was already FUBAR. What will happen after the charter schools take the best and brightest and then fund based on testing? This is where this is why this is a problem. Like, this is a big problem. We need to make sure we're giving everybody a decent education in this country. And it shouldn't matter if you're poor, if you're middle class, if you're working class, if you're wealthy. It should not matter. Everybody should receive a decent education. Sabby Sab, Where to Invade Next shows French school kids eating in the cafeteria and Norwegian prison. Maybe I did see that. Is it Michael Moore? I think it was a Michael Moore documentary. So maybe that is where I did see that. I know I saw that on TV, but in Germany, I have that from experience because I lived in Germany and we went to visit the German schools. So I saw what they had for lunch. They weren't eating no cardboard pizza. They had real food, real food. Yes, Cryptician, public school fake pizza. It's bad. It's so bad. Oh my God, that pizza's gross, man. John said, I grew up on the far south side of Chicago. The Black people there own their homes. The streets have the same potholes when I was a child, plus more. And how much what is the value of those homes? Because I think that's the difference. Because if you go to the wealthier suburban communities, their homes are probably worth more. I think that's a big part of the problem. It's just sad. It's just so, I just can't. I'm doing something a little bit different tonight. Some of you have asked me to do this and I kept saying I was going to and I never did. Some of you are saying, like, give me some local politics information so you guys can see what's happening here in Boston, in Massachusetts. So this story is recent. It actually popped up on my phone. And I'm just going to go ahead and tell you, if you were in the Boston area, Michelle Wu is not doing a good job. She won the mayor race last year. She's making people upset and they have every right to be angry. First, she got the homeless people there were homeless camps that were right outside of the methadone clinic. They obviously get treatment at the methadone clinic. She got the police to move those people out. So now they're nowhere near the methadone clinic, which is where they need to go to get their treatment. That was number one. Number two, she's trying to make it illegal for people in Boston to protest at people's homes. Why? Because people protested at her home. So now she's trying to make that illegal. Michelle Wu. And by the way, she's one of the ones that they said was the more, progressive kind of candidate. You see how this works? Now she's done something else. This is not right. This is incredibly wrong. I want to give you a little bit of history here. So Boston is a city of neighborhoods. It is very true. One of those neighborhoods is called the North End. Once upon a time, that used to be an Italian neighborhood. That was before gentrification. Now it is a neighborhood that exists of mom and pop Italian shops and stores, restaurants. But most of the people that grew up in the North End were pushed out. Again, thanks to gentrification. So most of the people who live in the North End are actually professionals, transplant professionals, not the working class families that grew up in the North End. A lot has changed here in Boston. And you guys know I have a big pet peeve about gentrification. because what I see happening in this city over the past 10 and a half years, a lot of the culture is being pushed out because the people are being pushed out. Give it a couple years and Boston will look like DC. And by that, I mean all of these chain restaurants, chain stores, businesses. And the thing that people really love about Boston is that you have a lot of mom and pop places. You have that culture, and it's slowly starting to disappear. So now Miss Michelle Wu, who is mayor of Boston, is trying to punish these restaurants in the North End. I have a problem with this, especially given what happened last year. We were shut down. A lot of these restaurants didn't make money or made very little money, and she has the audacity to try to make them pay more. So listen to this.
Saying that this is discrimination against Italians, others saying that this is a cash grab, but Mayor Wu says that this is necessary given the nature of this neighborhood. Right now, windows are open to eat at the North End restaurants. But as outdoor dining makes a comeback, eateries in this neighborhood will need to pay a $7,500 fee before returning al fresco.
Punishment for the North End, how about everybody else?
I don't make that kind of money.
Where is this money going, and how did they come to this figure?
It'll all be tied to addressing the impacts. For example, extra cleanings or trash pickup or some of the rodent control needs.
Mayor Michelle Wu says she understands it's been a hard time for the 90 or so North End restaurants during the pandemic, but she's also taking those who live here into consideration. If each owner pays, it would generate an extra $700,000 in revenue for the city.
Shouldn't our tax-paying dollars, our commercial property tax and our meals tax already be going to that?
The North End already has a shorter outdoor dining season than the rest of the city, and restaurants here also have to pay around $450 a month for each parking space they take up. Italian owners say those are fair concessions, but this surprise is too far.
We feel discriminated against and we feel targeted. And we're not happy with this.
They think this is discriminatory. What do you say to that?
I am so grateful for the contributions of our restaurants. The impacts of outdoor dining are unique in this neighborhood.
Didn't answer the question about the discrimination, though. You guys noticed that? She didn't answer the question about discrimination.
Neighborhood.
Now, to be clear, that $7,500 fee is on top of the cost for the parking spaces, for extra insurance, and also for the cost of the barriers themselves.
Okay, let's talk about this for a second. I'm just going to slide back, slide to the right. Okay. What they're telling you here is that these restaurants, she's asking them to pay $7,500 in order to let people eat outside. As you probably saw in the video, a lot of these restaurants in the North End are small. There's not as much space. And she's saying, well, it's for extra trash pickup. And why not just tell the restaurant owners to do the trash pickup themselves at the end of business? And if they don't, then they may face a fine. Why not just do that? You see what I'm saying? She's not even giving them a chance to do it themselves. I want to touch on the street cleaning issue. She was like, well, it's to pay for extra street cleaning. Bruh, look. Everybody in Boston knows street cleaning is a thing. It's annoying. You have to move your car to the other side of the road. Everybody that has a car hates it. It's a pain in the ass. The city already does street cleaning. You already pay taxes for these things to happen. So what is this really about? What do you need the $7,500 for? How many restaurants are in the North End? I don't know offhand, but let's just do a little bit of math. Let's pretend there's a lot of them. Let's pretend there are 30 restaurants in the North End times 7,500. That is $225,000. Now she says that money is supposed to go to the city. Why does the city need 2,025? Blah, 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 blah. Why does the city need over $200,000? It doesn't. I want to remind everybody that my state shut down when the pandemic hit. We were shut down for a while. Those businesses were closed. They weren't allowed to make any money. Some restaurants survived, some did not. How are you going to make a little pastry shop like Martin Pastry, who only sells pastries? How are you going to make them pay $7,500 just so people can sit outside? What? The North End has tiny streets. So yes, the restaurants also have to pay for the parking spots. That's like an extra $400. Why do you need this money, Woo? Why do you need this money? What is this really about? She brought up the issue of rodent control. The rodent issue has always been a problem. You just now care about it? Really? I don't buy it. I don't buy it. So you mean to tell me if they don't pay that money, they can't let people sit outside? That's not good for business. How dare you? Let's go back and I'll chime into something else. Greg says if the city wants more money, they should tax the big banks and tech companies in Boston more. What? We have Google. We have Facebook. We're number 2 after Silicon Valley in tech and startup companies in the country. I don't know if everyone knows that. Why don't you make them pay, Woo? Let's go back into this. I want you to hear what this says because there's a point that the woman brings out here that I think is important.
Saying that this is discrimination against Italians, others saying that this is a cash grab, but Mayor Wu says that this is necessary given the nature of this neighborhood. Right now, windows are open to eat at the North End restaurants, but as outdoor dining makes a comeback, eateries in this neighborhood will need to pay a $7,500 fee before returning al fresco.
Punishment for the North End, about everybody else.
I don't make that kind of money.
Where is this money going and how did they come to this figure?
It'll all be
Exactly. So that's just a random kind of number to come up with. But the thing that I do want to mention, the guy just told you we don't make that kind of money. Not every restaurant in the North End is like a full-scale Italian restaurant. Some are just pastry shops. They just serve pastries and coffee. Like, they can't let people sit outside? This is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. Here's Michelle Wu like, well, no, where are they supposed to get this money from? These restaurants were closed for a couple of months. No, this is not okay. This is not all right.
tied to addressing the impacts. For example, extra cleanings or trash pickup or some of the rodent control needs.
Mayor Michelle Wu says she understands it's been a hard time for the 90 or so North End restaurants during the pandemic, but she's also taking those who live here into consideration. If each owner pays, it would generate an extra $700,000 in revenue for the city.
For the city, it would generate revenue for the city. That's what it's all about. I don't think Boston needs more money, boo. Come on, I don't think we need that. This doesn't make any sense. And she's only doing it to the North End. And the North End is one of the neighborhoods in Boston that gets a lot of tourists, especially over the summer. Only doing it to them. I can't. And what she's going to say right here is a good point. Don't we already pay for these things? Listen to it.
Our tax-paying dollars, our commercial property tax and our meals tax already be going to that?
The North End already has a shorter outdoor dining season than the rest of the city, and restaurants here also have to pay around $450 a month for each parking space they take up. Italian owners say those are fair concessions, but this surprise is too far.
We feel discriminated against and we feel targeted, and we're not happy with this.
They think this is discriminatory. What do you say to that?
I am so grateful for the contributions of our restaurants. The impacts of outdoor dining are unique in this neighborhood.
Now, to be clear, that $7,500 fee is on top of the cost for the parking spaces, for extra insurance, and also for the cost of the barriers themselves.
She avoided answering that question. I wanted you to see that again. Hasn't been mayor for a whole year yet. Already messing things up and making some people angry. I just told you the other two things that she's already done that's pissing people off. This is a problem. Leave these restaurants alone. These are mom and pop businesses. They work their asses off. Leave them alone. How dare you come in and ask them for more money? Or would you be happier if it was a Starbucks? The corporate businesses that have a lot of money that can afford to pay $7,500. How can you ask people for more money after a pandemic? I'm not feeling you, Woo. I'm not feeling you. Sabby does not like. I'm going to go to some of the comments and then I am going to head out. Doobie doobie doo. Sorry, I went to the wrong thing here. Okay. Just making sure I got everything. Thanks for the super chat. Hysteric Raider. If we improve schools, then how will we feed the prison industrial complex or corrupt public officials? Also, don't remind me about school pizza. Sorry. Good points. Joy Duncan said, who are Michelle Wu's donors? I don't know, but I need to look that up. Thank you for mentioning that. Like, what the heck, man? This is just bad. God, we were shut down. Think about all the money those restaurants lost. And now you want them to come back. Now they're coming back. You want to ask them for money? Sebastian said, yet no money for hiring transit workers in transit shops. Right? You know, Marty Walsh didn't do everything right, but he wouldn't have done that. Just keeping it real. Marty Walsh would have not been asking them for money. But he's working for Joe Biden now, so you know. There's that. Golden Silence said, F them all. Big Mike said they are doing the same here. Bring more tourists. Look, that rodent thing just cracked me up. I was like, yeah. I think those of us that have lived in Boston know the rodent thing, but it was always an issue. It's been a problem. It's increased over time. And that was before people were eating outside. Lila said, it's bad when you're reminiscing about Marty Walsh. Look, Marty Walsh didn't do everything right. I didn't like the fact that he's pro-cop. I wasn't, keen on that. But Marty Walsh understood that younger people live in Boston too, and we need to make it more of an exciting place for people to be. Marty Walsh did Donna Summer roller skate night. That was funny. Excuse me. He did a Donna Summer roller skate night. Loved it. He really was the one. He pushed to keep the T. The T is the subway system here for those who don't know. He pushed the T to stay open later. Now the city came and took that back. But he said, go out and vote with your feet. And we did it. Like, people don't know our transit system is not 24 hours like New York City. So last call here, it's about 12:45. So if you work third shift, there's no transit option for you. You either have to have a car or call a cab or Uber to get home from work. Delthea said Wu was a typical Dem, great on rhetoric, but excellent on beating up on working people. It's really a slap in the face to go to those businesses and ask them for more money after everything that we've all been through. It's really disgusting. Go ask Robert Kraft for that money. What? Yes, go ask Robert Kraft for that money. The Patriots made enough money. Go ask him. Oh, but no, I didn't play that. No. All right, guys, it's been a fun night. I think Nick and CJ should be live. I am going to head out. I hope you all have a great night. My hair is still a mess and I got to get out of here. So thanks for the super chat, Andrew. Jink thinks he's Batman. He's more penguin. Aw, man. Andrew. I love the Michael Jackson picture, though, by the way. Where you make me feel. Hey, pretty baby with the high heels on. All right, guys, have a good night. Keep up the fight.